Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. Today we are very excited. We had a very special guest, but I'm going to let Lizzie do the introduction this time.
I am beyond excited to be introducing Maria Martinez Guzman. She is the Executive Vice President for Univision Network News. She is the recipient of, I think it's 8 Emmys, 2 Peabody Awards, 2 more awards. Am I correct?
Yeah, the Mura
Awards. And she is my big sister, and I couldn't be more honored, more excited to have her here today with us.
Thank you, ladies, for inviting me. I have to tell you, I wasn't expecting this, Lizzie. When I said yes to you, I thought I hadn't done my research. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to do her a favor. She goes, no, I'm doing a podcast. And I should have really paid more attention. I've loved what I've seen so far. I've loved the dynamic between the both of you. I love the conversation. And most of all, I love the fact that women can sit together and talk about mental health and talk about so many other things that are so important nowadays. So thank you guys for inviting me. Awesome. It's my honor to be here.
No.
Thank you. I have to tell you that my big sister has produced, I don't even know what the right word is, the interviews for world leaders such as President Obama, President Biden, President Trump.
Wow.
She's done
I've
it all.
participated in many of those interviews and I've produced them. What I do is I'm executive vice president, like Lizzie said, and I manage the news department for Univision Network News. And under that umbrella, which is news, we also have Despierta América, we have Primer Impacto, we have Gordi Flaca, Al Punto, Aquí Ahora. We have a streaming channel in VIX, which is a 24/7 streaming channel, and obviously all of the newscast. So I have a lot of people that work for me and work alongside me. And for me, it's an honor to do this job. That's all I've ever wanted to be. That's all I know how to be. I'm probably clueless or trying to do anything else.
Can I stop you right there? Because I want you to tell Camila the story
of why
you got to.
Well, I'm a Marielita. For all of you guys that don't know what a Marielita is, think about Scarface. You remember Tony Montana came on the boat in the beginning? Well, in 1980, there was 125,000 Cubans that came on the boat. Our grandparents were here since the 60s, but my dad had to stay behind in Cuba. He wasn't allowed to go. He got married. He had my sister and I, not Lizzie, another sister that we have, Christy. And in 1979, my dad was allowed to leave Cuba on his own. But my mom, my sister and I were left behind. So my grandparents sent a boat in 1980 when Mariel opened. And he sent a boat for us. But in every case of every boat that went to pick up family members, what Fidel did, he led what he called the undesirables into that boat. So they were murderers, rapists, everything and anything, and family members. So my mom, back then she was probably 29 years old. I was 7. My sister was 5, my sister Christy. And she thought we were going to die. So she drugged my sister and I. So I have very few memories of leaving Cuba. I have one. That's why I have this cross that my husband got me. My last memory of leaving Cuba was, a donde tú vas, tú no necesitas eso. And a guard pulled the cross.
A guard?
A guard. As I was getting into the boat. So that's my last memory of Cuba.
Wow. Wait, can we translate what you just said?
Yes, where you're going, you're not going to need this. You're not going to need this. Wow. And he wanted to steal a cross that had been sent over by my grandparents. So I love this country. This country has given me every opportunity. And it's pretty much made me the woman that I am. And I think that one of the things that I love, you can dream. I always have this quote in mind, which to this day, I don't even know who wrote it. It says, little girls with big dreams turn into women with vision.
Yes, ma'am.
So I lived in Michigan for 6 months. And I was living in Michigan. And my grandfather, who I said, Cristobal, God rest his soul, he spoke perfect English. And I was watching a debate. It was 1980. It was a presidential debate between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. And I didn't understand. I had just gotten from Cuba. And I kept on asking my grandfather, what are they saying? What are they saying? Because it seemed very animated. And Barbara Walters was the moderator in that event. And he kept on telling me and translating. And I was enthralled because I said, oh my God, in this country, you get to ask those questions? And he said, in this country, you get to be her. And that's where my love affair with news started. And that's all I've ever wanted to be.
Wow.
A journalist.
Since she's 7 years old.
Since I was 7 years old.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was a little girl with a big dream that turned into a woman with a vision. Mm-hmm. Every story that I would do, it's like my baby. I live it. I dream it. I focus on it. I become obsessed with it. It doesn't matter if it's too small, too big. There's nothing dull about what I do. Every day I walk into my work. I walk in there and I never do the same thing. I am so lucky. I am so blessed because it's, I'm watching history in the making. How many people get to go to work and see history? Whether I'm covering a hurricane, whether I'm covering a serial killer, whether I'm covering a world leader, an artist, a singer, a writer. It's people that make the news. Yeah. And I get to sit there and witness it and talk to them and it be part of it somehow. Yeah. So it's just, for me, I don't think I'll ever get bored of doing this job. It's very rewarding. I have to say that I am now in another role, which is a lot more supervisory. Sometimes I feel like, oh God, I'm turning into a bureaucrat.
No.
But I know where I can make a difference. I can make a difference with a lot of women who come to me and say, how can I grow in this industry? What can I do to be better? How can I go get that dream interview?
It is scary out there.
What do you tell them? What's the feedback that you give them?
Never give up. Never take no for an answer. When I send a reporter, and this is horrible what I'm going to say, I send a reporter to cover a funeral. Let's say somebody just died or somebody got murdered and the parents of a murdered child are in the funeral and you have to cover that. Yeah. That's scary for a reporter. You don't want it. That's such a private moment. What do you tell a parent who just lost a child? Exactly. But they're covering a story. Okay. So, how do you do it? You do it with decency. You do it with, here's my card. Maybe you're not ready to talk right now, but when you are, I would love to hear your story. Exactly. And like that. And so sometimes they come back, oh, they said no, never going to do it. I go, you know what? Be persistent. Today was not the day, but maybe in a week, maybe in a month, maybe in a year. One of the things that I am most proud of in 2003, you guys probably children. I know you were children. 2003, I was covering Desert Storm. Was it Desert Storm? No, it was the Iraq invasion. The Iraq invasion when we invaded Iraq after Afghanistan. And there was Edgar Hernandez was a POW. He was a prisoner of war. Yes. He was one of 5 who had been taken hostage by Saddam Hussein. He was the only Hispanic. Remember, because I work for Univision, I always have to find that Hispanic angle. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I don't know if you guys, Lynch was another one, the woman. I don't know if you guys, you were too small. And the father said to me, if he ever comes back, you're going to get the first interview. And everybody at my work thought, that kid is gone. He's dead. You're never going to get that interview. For 6 weeks, I would call the guy every day. Hey, how you doing? Mr. Hernandez, how are you? How are you feeling today? Oh my God. By then I had a daughter. So I know what a parent feels like. Oh my God, I can't imagine. And every day I would call and see how the family was. Lo and behold, the 5 of them were rescued somewhere in a Saddam Hussein dungeon. Wow. And when he came back, that father made his son sit with us and give us that first interview. He kept his word. He kept his word.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I want to go back to the story that you mentioned when you left Cuba.
When I left Cuba.
I want to say at 7 years old, you already know what's going on.
I'm going to have to tell you something. And being a Marielita was such a bad stigma. You would say the word Marielita and everybody was like, oh, es una Marielita, es una delincuente, debe ser un criminal. Said criminal, a delinquent, I was 7. And I would hear all these stories. And we lived in Michigan for only 6 months. And then we came to Miami. And let me tell you what I did. I don't know if Lisa even knows. In the first day of school, my mom and my dad put me in this school. It was Auburndale Elementary. And what happened was my dad and my mom sent me off to school, and I kept on saying to myself, I can't say I'm a Marielita. So I'm going to pretend like I speak a third language. I was 7. Maybe by then I had turned 8.
But at 7 years old?
So the teacher spoke to me in English and said, hi, what's your name? I knew what she was saying, but I needed to pretend in my head. I was pretending like I didn't speak a language. So I said, blah, 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 blah. And the teacher was like,
What's wrong with this child?
Oh, you probably don't speak English. Let me ask you in Spanish, ¿cuál es tu nombre? I absolutely perfectly understood what my name was. I answered her the same. I said, blah, blah, blah. No. Well, lo and behold, they called my parents that night to come to school the next day, that they were going to ship me off to a school for special needs. And my mom was like, pero ella se veía tan normal. She looks so normal. My God, we had to come to America to discover there's something wrong with this child.
Oh my God.
They were very upset. The next day they went to sign the papers. And my mom goes, but how did you figure it out? She was always so normal. No, she doesn't speak. What do you mean she doesn't speak? No. Have you spoken to her in English? We just came from Cuba not so long ago, about 6 months. No, she doesn't speak Spanish or English. And she goes, she already knew that something was up.
I was like, ay,
she
esta
said,
niña.
Toñi, that's my nickname, habla. And then I said, blah, blah. And then she looked at me again and she pinched me. She goes, you better start talking. Mm-hmm. And there I just started crying and said, Mom, I don't want to be a Marielita. It's horrible. But that's just to show you, you know, the stigmas that, you know, can cause somebody as you're seeing. I didn't want to be a social. I felt like nobody's going to like me. I'm not going to make any friends. This is a new country.
But I want to ask you, when you were 7 years old, how did you learn what a Marielita was? How?
From the news.
Okay.
From the
so
news,
when
and
you
were
saw
seeing
that,
yes, and you would see a Marielita killed 3 people today. A Marielita, you know, started a fire.
It was all those criminals.
They were living on tents under, you know, the highways in Miami.
It's just amazing that at 7 years old, going through that you're so aware about what it means, that you don't want to be associated.
For me, it was bad. Marielita was a negative connotation, mm-hmm. and it was, you must be bad, you must be a delinquent. And I'm very proud of being Cuban. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of being Hispanic.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be a Marielita. And to be honest with you, I am so proud of that, right? You know, through the years, it gives you like, I wear like a badge of honor. I am a Marielita. And a lot of people say, what is it? Or they think of Scarface. Yeah. Really? I mean, and you're not a criminal. No.
But I think that going through that, like seeing you, first of all, I think we can all agree that she's a badass. Okay?
Yeah, she is.
Starting off with that, but just going through that experience, what you had to live with and seeing your family, and then what the guard did with your necklace. Just, do you think that was like a little bit of the fuel or what make you be the person that you are?
I think the fuel was, I came from a communist country, and I hate the fact that you can't vote, that you can't say what you want, mm-hmm. that you can't think what you want. And I've always been a very independent spirit. And when I got to this country and I really saw the possibilities of being in a place that you make your own destiny, that you can speak your mind, I fell in love with that. And in being a journalist, that's what you do mm-hmm. every day. You know, you're speaking, you're thinking, and you're expressing yourself somehow. Although in journalism, you have to be objective. You show the facts. But I mean, in a place like Cuba, you can't even do that. It's a facts according to the government.
Correct.
And although I was probably very young and I didn't capture what exactly it meant mm-hmm. to, you know, live in a democratic mm-hmm. country, I fell in love with it.
Like talking from my experience, you know, I left Cuba when I was 9. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of around the same age, but I always said that phrase that ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. I was a child. I didn't know what was going on around. I didn't pay attention about the government. I didn't pay attention about anything. All I knew is that I remember my parents saying, no, we cannot do that. No, we cannot say that now. Mm-hmm. You know, the controlling part and being from the outside. And then when I went to Spain, going through history and the books, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I remember my dad shipping us off to church and he had to be in hiding. We lived in a small town called Cabaiwan. There's about 30,000. It's probably the equivalent in the United States of a place like somewhere in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't go to church. And I remember he would dress us up. My mom and him would dress us up. And for my dad, it was important that we go to church. They got married by church when nobody did.
When nobody was doing that.
No, nobody was doing that. They did that, So it was those sort of things. My dad was always kind of like a rebel. His parents were already in the States. So he was an outcast. So we had that, I want to say privilege, that we always knew there was something better, that we were going to go somewhere where that was not the norm, that to live in hiding and to be
almost like a rebel.
Yes. So it was like that always to me and always, blew my mind.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is my sister and these are stories that I've always, but I hear her and I'm always so inspired by you. You're amazing.
Thank you.
This is my big sister.
Oh God.
Yes. I mean, she's just this incredible woman. She's come to this country from the age of 7 years old. She knew what she wanted to do. She inspires and empowers women every single day in her line of work. And to me personally, I need to add, because it's something that happened when I was very young. I was 19 years old when my father passed away, when our father passed away. Mm-hmm. She was 29. And she quickly had to, take on the responsibility of being.
Dad was young. Our father was 49. He died of cancer, brain cancer. He lasted a month.
From the time that we found out he was sick.
My mom actually was 2 years older than my dad. And she was 51 at the time. She wasn't like, we didn't have any benefits. She couldn't retire. Lisi was going in college. My other sister was married. So I was divorced already. I was divorced from my first husband, the father of my child. So instead of feeling sorry for myself, like, oh my God, all these things landed on me. And what am I going to do? I had my 4 grandparents. I was responsible for my 4 grandparents, 2 of which lived with my mom. The other 2, which were my dad's parents, depended on us too. We had to give them money. So instead of saying, why me?
There was no question.
No, it was, why not me?
Mm-hmm. And she took on the responsibility of, I was a hot mess. I had just lost my father. I, unfortunately, probably wanted to drop out of college. I started drinking.
I was
grieving the loss of my father, but my sister took on this huge responsibility of getting my ass into shape. And
I remember I went to her car. And she had a vodka bottle. I threw out the vodka bottle and I was like, you get your shit together.
Yeah.
You know what? You're going to go to college. You're going to finish college. That's what Dad would have wanted you to do. Mm-hmm.
And had I not had that, who knows where I'd be right now.
Girl.
Because my mom at that time, she was just so overwhelmed with grief. She wasn't thinking about it. She was like, and you have to understand, a 19-year-old, my other sister and I, Christy and I, obviously had our dad walk us down the aisle. All these things that you should do, that you should, the day she got married, she didn't have that.
So that sucks. That's the part that's not sucks.
But no, it sucks. But you know what? That's a part that shows the woman that you are.
And did help shape me.
Yes. And you never felt sorry for it. You had a few months of, craziness. You got your shit together and you went forward.
I'm so proud of both of you.
Thank you.
And she dedicated her degree to me.
Yes. When I graduated.
When she graduated, I was so proud of her.
When I graduated and I finished my master's program in psychology.
Yes.
Yes. Thank God for my mother and my other sister and everything. Mm-hmm. But I dedicated my studies, my degree, everything was to my sister. Because had it not been for her, again, God knows where I'd be right now. So when I graduated, I said, this that I have right here is because of you.
And one thing about our family is we all have women.
Yeah,
we're women. Each of my sisters only has daughters. I have a daughter.
Wow.
My sister Christy has a daughter. There's no boys. So what we are is a group of very strong, independent women. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad because, when we want our way, we want our way. But it's certainly something that, and I think that's from my mother, from, when she got in that boat and drugged my sister and I and said, you know what? We're going to die. We're going to die. I'd rather these kids be,
so afraid.
But she never, ever portrayed that. I have another story when I got to, I got to Key West. I remember they put us in yellow buses and they took us up to Chrome Detention Center from Key West to Chrome in the yellow buses. It was like a 4-hour thing. And I walked into Chrome. Fast forward, 30 years later, I was in McAllen, Texas, sitting in my newsroom. That's where I started my career, in McAllen, Texas. I was a news director. And I kept on looking at this guy. And I said, God, I know that face. And I couldn't put the face to the name to the face. I knew him. My reporter was interviewing him. And I said, sir, I'm sorry. I know you from somewhere. And he said, well, you know, I've been here most of my life. The only time I wasn't here was from 79 to 81. When I was stationed in Chrome, I was in Chrome. I was head of Chrome Detention Center in Miami. And I said, you were the guy who said, welcome to America.
Oh my God.
You really remembered him? That's crazy.
I had that face etched in my mind. He gave me my first Coca-Cola, my first ham sandwich. And obviously the face had changed because it was 30 years later. But it was that, you know, there's certain things that just stay with you as a child.
I was going to say that. You're aware all of these little things that
I'm very aware of that. I was very aware of that Chrome, of sleeping in a cot, our uncle going to pick us up. You know, there's things that are vivid. And that man, he asked me to speak later on when he retired. He was head of immigration and customs. And it's just an honor for me. So that's another thing about me. When other people are bashing, you know, the police and law enforcement, I'm very much a pro law enforcement because to me, they build the Coast Guard helped us when we started adrift, you know, got to the States. My ex-husband, the father of my child, is a drug enforcement agent. So there's just, you know, I've just always valued and respected and admired all those people who dedicate their lives to law enforcement.
To protecting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going through everything that you've been through life, what do you think that has helped you achieve all the goals that you have?
Never feeling sorry for myself.
Best
and be driven and set yourself goals, but realistic goals. If you're going to say to yourself, I want to be a millionaire by the age of 30, that's not unrealistic. If you want to say to yourself, you know what, by the age of 30, I want to make twice what I make now, for instance, or twice your age. This is always a better. She's told me this.
Taught me that.
Yeah,
listen to
this. If you're 30 years old, you should strive to make at least 60, which is twice your age. Okay. If you're 40, you should be making 80. But besides that, love what you do and don't be a mediocre. I hate mediocrity. Always be the best. If you're a booker, bookers are those that are trying to get the interview. Be the best booker you can be. If you're a producer, be the best producer. If you're an assignment editor, I don't know what you guys know.
What you do,
be the best at it. You know, and don't work. One of the things that always boggles my mind nowadays, and I don't know if this is because of COVID, because people are just feeling, you know, so sad. And I only want to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I still have to work 24/7 because I'm in the news business. News doesn't happen 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
They're always happening.
And I believe all the time. I've been in holidays, in Christmas.
By the way, I have to tell you a quick story about this. And she really means this when she says all the time, it is all the time. I will never forget, we're at Thanksgiving years ago in her house, Thanksgiving dinner, and we're about to cut the turkey. Or in our case, we're Cuban, so there was that. And I remember her looking at her cell phone and saying, "Oh, guys, sorry, hold on. This is a call from the Pentagon. I have to take this."
Fidel Castro died over a Thanksgiving holiday.
Right.
So she gets up, she's running around.
I would wait.
Okay, but all these things, you know, this is my life. This is, and I love what I do. And as a single mom, I was a single mom for a long time. I got married 10 years ago. My daughter's going to be 24. She's in law school, but I missed a lot of things. And my daughter knew early on. Thank God I had my sisters, my mother to take care of her. But this is what mommy does.
So it's going to be another.
For instance, I remember when she turned 12 years old, I was in Spain following a prostitute. There was a Secret Service scandal with some of Obama's Secret Service agents who had gone to Colombia to on a trip, and they got involved with a prostitute. The prostitute decided to give me an interview, and she went to Spain, and that's where I had to follow her I missed my daughter's 12th birthday. I missed my daughter's entire first month of kindergarten because I was in Katrina. Hurricane Katrina. You know, those things I cannot get back. They're sacrifices. But, you know, and my daughter always taught, Mommy, do you have baking? She couldn't say breaking. Do you have baking news today, Mommy? You know, but she's very proud of who I am.
She's extremely,
yes. She sees it.
So, you know, I never excuse her for me. School is very important. Our daughters know that whether I'm their aunt, their mother, you know, that it's extremely important that they get the best grades possible and that they make something of themselves. Not every child is going to be a superstar, but you know which child, you know, you have high expectations for. And don't try, no, because, ay, pobrecita, poor thing, no, because, you know, she had a lot of homework today and okay, she missed her homework. That's, I think, when we as parents start.
No excuses.
No excuses.
And don't enable.
Enable
their behavior.
No.
I want to.
Lizzie it's tough. She's
a tough mama.
Yeah, it's a tough mom, and she has expectations from her. From her oldest daughter. There was a baby.
I don't want to hear any excuses. Your responsibility, like my responsibility, is to go to work. I tell my daughter, your responsibility is to do your homework and get good grades and do your best. Mm-hmm. Do your best every single day. So yeah, I am a little tough.
Wow, I would have never seen that because everything that you see is the smiles and. Wow.
But she even with a son, she doesn't even have to scream at her.
No, I know.
She tells her, she never screams at them. She says, Nikki.
Sometimes it's more
This
scary.
is your,
This is what you gotta do.
I want to ask more, question. Throughout your career, do you know, or what are these moments that have been like determined into your future? Like has been like a particular person that has
can I tell you my worst story?
Sure.
I had just given birth. I was living in McAllen, Texas. It was the year 2000. And my baby Stephanie was about 3 months or 4 months. And I'm going to tell you this because people always ask me, I've covered thousands of stories through the years. What has been your toughest story? And that was my toughest story. I'm going to tell you why. I had a police scanner because I was doing local news. And when you have a police scanner, you hear there's a robbery, 1050, whatever the codes are. I forgot. It was such a long time ago. And there was a kidnapped child. Her name was Estrellita. It went through the police scanner, and I was relatively close to where the actual crime scene was. So it was the girl's home. And I went to the place, and the mother was there, and the mother didn't speak English. And I walked in because I told my reporter, I'm going to get there first. I'm going to tell you how, the story is going to get some facts until you guys make it. I was there by myself. My cameraman hadn't gone there. Reporter hadn't gone there. And the police walk in. It was a Texas state trooper. And he said to me, do you speak Spanish? Because the woman didn't speak English. I said, yes. He said, I need you to translate. And I was like, okay, what is the first rule when you get in news? Never become involved with the story.
Never become emotional.
Never become involved. Never become part of the story.
Okay.
And then he said, tell her that we found her body. And I kept on thinking of my daughter. This little girl, Estrellita, was 2 years old. And the words wouldn't come out. And she knew something was horrible. So I had to tell her something horrible. She goes, ¿Qué dice? ¿Qué me está? Dime, ¿qué quiere decir? Dime. And the words
You became the person that gave her the news.
I became the person that gave her the news.
That's awful.
And I've never forgotten the story. That's been the worst story. It marked me, but it also taught me a horrible lesson. Lessons, you know what? I'm not going to say horrible because lessons they're lessons and they're horrible. It was a horrible moment. And what it taught me, I shouldn't have been there. I didn't have a reason to be there. I was there. Maybe I was being too ambitious.
Okay.
I didn't follow protocol. What was I going? Because I was close to the crime scene. What was I going to do? I didn't have a camera. I didn't have a reporter.
You saw the opportunity.
I saw the opportunity. I saw the opportunity to get that great story. Oh my God, a kidnapping. I had just had a baby. I had gotten back to work. and I was,
Eager.
I was
You were
eager.
trying to balance
I was
both
trying to balance,
motherhood
yeah.
and
And
being
let me
a
tell you,
professional again.
that story destroyed me. And it took me a long time to come back from that. It made me fearful. I don't like the word fear. And I can tell you it was fearful because it was like I kept on thinking about that mom. Her face was ingrained in my head. And it was like, oh my God, how could I have done that? How could I have told her? And I felt like, and I was, honestly, it was one of those things that it took me a while to get out of.
But it changed you
It
in
changed
the sense
me.
that you started making decisions a little bit differently as how you address.
Absolutely.
I need to ask you something because this brings up you guys, you and your journalists, you cover stories that are terrible sometimes, right? You cover school shootings, you cover kidnappings.
And some of my journalists, we have to go later to therapy, which the company, obviously they pay for
because they're parents.
Yeah, their parents, their sisters. For instance, the one in Connecticut, what was it? Newtown. What was it? The one that said the 19 children who died in 2012 in a mass shooting. That are my New York reporters that cover that. To this day, they said that's one of the saddest. I think it was like December 14, 2012. I remember the day, but I can't remember the name of the school in Connecticut. It was like 19 6-year-olds. It was first graders. Those things are you don't ever kind of get over. COVID was very hard for many of us, including me, because as we didn't know what the facts were, we didn't know how people were, how contagious this thing was, how quickly you could get it if you're going to die. And our reporters, I was sending our reporters to hospitals to go and get the stories. And although they would wear all these suits, obviously weighed on me. I didn't know if I was taking... Those
decisions weighed on you.
Of course, the decisions weighed. I didn't know if I was sending somebody to their death because, we had colleagues that died. And it wasn't... That's part of our job. People, as the story is happening, we're racing into the story. But those things, I'm a human being. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. So, imagine if you have to live with a decision that you made for work, caused the life of somebody else, caused their death, took somebody away from their families. It's horrible. I have to tell you, we spoke to our job, our work, brought in specialists to talk to us, and it was very helpful. Therapy, yeah, it was very helpful because we were all very depressed and we were isolated. I never stopped going to work. I never worked from home. I went into the station every single day because I figured if I'm sending my people out there, I have to be here.
You have to be a leader.
And let me just say, she went to work every single day, and she did that in the middle of being
breast cancer,
being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yes, I had breast cancer, and they didn't want me there. But I said, I'm not going to be a chicken shit and feel sorry for myself. And because other women, are...
Guys, a badass.
Yes.
So
it
was 2021. It was about a year.
You're fine.
Yes, I'm fine. Ladies, to do your mammograms, do your things, because thanks to a mammogram, we have family history in our end.
Our mother had breast cancer.
Our mother had breast cancer.
So you
our
got
grandma,
your BRCA 1 and 2, your tech, you're good?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but again, it was one of those things people say, I can't believe you were coming in here with cancer. I almost died. I got COVID.
She got COVID.
And I had to be in the hospital for a couple of weeks.
She had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I believe a month later, if I'm not mistaken, she got COVID.
And you were immunosuppressed.
Yes.
And was hospitalized.
Yeah. That was scary. But again, it was one of those things that I remember signing if they were going to have to intubate me. Yeah. And I was signed. I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I was scared, but I'm like, I was lying to myself. Sitting in it. But nobody can come visit me. It was during those days that nobody can come visit me. And you know what I did? I started taking phone calls from the hospital, video calls.
Wait, so
my boss was like, listen, I don't want to. Because people were like, oh my God.
I need to tell you another quick story. And we could tell stories, until we're blue in the face, but I will never forget. And I want to tell the story because this goes to her personality. This is a little bit about her. She is not going to take no for an answer.
I'm not going to take no.
She's going to do what it takes all the time. She's going to push the boundaries, and she just doesn't take no for an answer. She was in Venezuela. Her and her team, her crew of how many?
We were 7 or 8. I was with Jorge Ramos.
We
got arrested in Miraflores.
She was detained by President
You know
Chavez.
what I did? I asked questions. My reporter asked questions. He had given us an interview.
Cuba.
That became an international incident.
Wait, before you get there. Hold on. It's February 25th, our mother's birthday. And I get a call from Ariana, which is one of her team,
one of my employees, who manages the reporters.
And Ari says, I have to give you some news. And I said, what's going on? And she said, your sister is detained in Venezuela, and we haven't talked to her in a little while. It's been a couple of hours.
Oh, God.
I obviously have to now tell my mother on her birthday, this is what's going on. But now,
we had our equipment confiscated. What Jorge Ramos did was ask the questions that he needed to ask. Obviously, that drove Maduro crazy. It was with Maduro. And he, stopped the interview, got up. They confiscated our equipment. I went ballistic instead of, me like sitting down, I was just so angry because nobody's going to tell me what to do, and nobody's going to censor me.
Trigger something from your childhood, coming from Cuba and all that. You're like,
and
no.
In fact, Jorge always says that I turn into like a lioness, because I'm like, I'm not going to let myself be bullied here. And then my husband, who is a cameraman, who was there they sent him to, calm me down. That didn't work. That was worse.
That was probably worse.
That was probably worse. They patted me down because they thought I had maybe stuffed one of the cards from the interview on my dress. And basically they had to, at the end, we were there like 8 hours, 7 or 8 hours. We were detained. We were, they checked all our stuff. Became an international incident. We were let go. But later on, I was like, maybe I should have used my common sense. I was screaming. I was yelling. I went ballistic. People kept on asking me, are you scared? Were you scared? I was mad. I wasn't scared. I'm like, how dare these people? All he did was ask questions. That's all Jorge did. He did his job. And when they started censoring us and checking us, and, I felt like I was being I don't want to say raped, but because it's such violated. I was being violated. I had this woman who stuck her hands in my private parts to see if I had stuck something there. And that didn't bother me. What bothered me was the fact that they now had my interview.
The control.
They, and they never returned it. But we got it. We got that interview.
Did?
Yes. Ooh. That's another story that I cannot discuss. But we did get that interview.
See?
I want to say,
isn't she amazing?
Yeah.
Going back, I love it, but just going back in the advice of being persisting and never giving up. Do you think that sometimes at some point you have to let go some of them, that when to stop or when to keep going? Because
I never let go.
She's going to tell you, she'll never let go.
I never let go.
She'll always keep going.
Why would I let go?
Because maybe that wasn't the time.
The only thing I have to let go if I'm dying, I'm dead, then I have to let go.
But maybe that wasn't the time.
Maybe, but I'll figure it out when the time is.
She's always going to.
That's the determination that I want to have.
You know what my last story is going to be? The day Cuba is free, I'm going to go and I'm going to report from there. That's what I've been dreaming about, and I will not stop.
And you shall have.
In my lifetime, hopefully, that will happen. And I don't care how I get there. I don't care if it's dangerous. And my entire family knows that they're not going to stop me. That's going to be for me, that's my dream. That's what I've been obsessed about.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yes.
That's my story where it started. That's my story where I'll end it.
I want to add to that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I see life, right? Me in particular, I see my life as a story, right? And I always think, well, this is this chapter in my story. This is my chapter in my book. And I want to tie it with everything that you're saying and just, with mental health. I think it's so important to really look at life in chapters. And not all chapters are good. Mm-hmm. Some chapters are going to be rough.
Yeah.
And really getting past, if you're having a tough chapter right now, it's moving forward and move on to that next chapter. And that's, it's interesting that you say stories. I see my life as a story.
And you know what? Also, Lizzie, sadly enough, and I have to say this as a woman, all the women in my life have been amazing. Most of them have been amazing. Having said that, professionally, there have been men who have been the one to promote me. We women sometimes become obstacles for other women.
For each other.
Yes.
You know, in my career, other than the Cuba story, which for me is personal, what I am doing now, what inspires me now is to be a mentor to so many young women who are, you know, who are passionate about news, who are passionate about being a journalist, who really are going in there and all they want to do is tell stories. I'm in love with telling stories. And if that somehow I can shape them, you don't know how rewarding it is when, hi Maria, you remember me, you gave me my first job, or you remember I was your intern and now I'm an anchor in such and such a place, or hey Maria, guess what? You know, now I'm a news director in X station.
You're making a difference.
There's a girl named Berta who started as an intern for me in McAllen, Texas, and now she's vice president of all the Univision stations, the news ones. The Univision ones are part of Univision, but they're not owned and operated. And every time I talk to this girl, I'm like, I was maybe 29 years old, you know, like 28 when I living in McAllen. She was my intern. She was maybe 22. And she said, you gave me my first job. Wow. You know, and like that, there's great stories. So I always tell them, don't give up. And those women who can make a difference, make the difference.
Yeah.
You know, help them. You know, take the time to sit down, have a cup of coffee and say, you know what? For instance, if you want to be a serious journalist, ladies, don't start going to red carpets, dressing, you know, inappropriately, because then what happens in it, what you put in the internet stays in the internet.
Yeah.
If you want to be an entertainment reporter, yes, that's where you should be. If you want to be able to sit down with a world leader and ask them, you know, maybe that's not the way to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Or be objective. Don't put things in there, opinions, because sometimes you can lose an interview by putting an opinion.
Yes.
You know, bashing a leader, because you don't know if that person is going to be a president again, or he's going to be a candidate of the major party.
That applies to everything, every career, every profession.
Everything. What do we do now when we're looking to see, should we hire somebody? I know I'm looking through their social media. I'm seeing what they do.
The character of the person.
Because that shows the character of the person.
What you do today, you may not see it, but maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line,
you. It's there.
It haunts you. So make sure that whatever decisions you make today, you're not going to regret them tomorrow. Absolutely.
So I want us to circle back, because I think listeners have to really find the value in every single episode. And I know personally, you've given me so much value in my personal life, my professional life, everything. You've taught me so much. So I want for you to stress a couple of things that you've talked about on this podcast. One, being persistent.
Being persistent. Never give up.
Never give up.
Never take no.
Never take no for an answer.
Never take no for an answer. Figure it out. You find that yes.
Find the yes.
Find the yes. I like that.
Yeah.
Find the yes.
Little girls with big dreams turn into women with a vision.
She has been saying that for as long as I can remember.
That's it. That's for me very important. I'm a grandma. Step grandma, but I don't like the word step. It's kind of ugly. I'm a grandma. There's this my granddaughter Julieta, who is 11 years old, goes to school with my niece Nikki. She just came from Mexico a year ago. Her mom abandoned her, sent her to vacation to the States. And then the day before we were supposed to return her, said, keep her, you guys keep her. So she's turned our world upside down. It's been very challenging because my daughter's grown. And I had thought I was an empty nester, that this part of my life was over. But I kept on thinking, with this little girl, I'm going to really apply what I've learned, what I've been telling women. Julieta, little girls with a dream turn into women with a vision.
I love it.
And
I think we should make a t-shirt out of that. I like it. And I want to keep saying that, again, by listening, I admire you. I see you. I see the power. I love it. And I think that even I can apply in my own life.
Don't be intimidated. That's another one.
I know.
Don't be intimidated.
So there's this trend going around in social media that it used to be in Spanish. It says "la que puede puede y la que no." You know, the one that can, and the one that doesn't, like a bad something negative. But now they're switching it. Mm-hmm. Now it says "la que puede puede," the ones that can, and the one that can't, you help her. Right. Yes, you support her.
Yes.
You bring her up.
And that's what my sister has always been about. She's always been about helping, supporting growth for women, helping them to move forward, to really move forward in their careers. And
without the need to be bitchy.
Or catty or any of that.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Doesn't mean I can't be assertive. I can certainly be assertive, but there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens to us women a lot. If a man is assertive, he's called assertive. If a woman is assertive, she's sometimes called a bitch.
Sorry.
Especially in this, you know, in our industry. But I don't feel like that. I feel like, you know, I can tell a little girl, I can tell a young woman, you know, this is what you need to do. And this is what you need to focus on. And I'm not, you know, in a way that gets through without being, you know, that bitch that she's going to remember. Right. She's going to remember the woman who's inspiring her. Learn how to inspire.
Yeah.
Women who are in power need to figure out a way to inspire
and empower.
And I think that even nowadays, everybody, men or women, they need to work on themselves, gain their voice, their self-confidence, you name it. And when they see other people shine, maybe they don't know why, they don't know the person, they don't know their life story, but they judge because maybe they feel insecure and they're going to talk nonsense behind their back, or they're going to look at them funny. And that is just so unnecessary. Going back to that is, instead of supporting each other, admiring each other and elevating each other, some women or even men, they just look down and be like, oh, esta.
Sí.
Or create obstacles for each other.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Well, I couldn't be happier that you've been here and you've shared all this information with us. You've shared your tips on confidence. At least I will tell you.
I've told you the little girl who started with the cross, her cross got pulled, turned into a woman who will not be stopped, no matter where she's at. And that could be any woman.
Thank you for being here to inspire and empower people. Wow. I mean,
I have to tell you that I'm the one inspired today, because I came in here with my little narrow-minded self about thinking, oh, I'm going to do Lizzie a favor. I'm going to talk about whatever on some podcast. And I was blown away. Yeah. I was blown away with what you ladies are doing. I was blown away with the woman you've become and the woman who's sitting next to you. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I cry. Just let it out. Let it out. Because this is what we are doing, what we're doing. We are bringing this to you. We're bringing this to everyone out there that needs that maybe reality check. Maybe they need a reminder. Maybe they need some motivation so they can move forward. They can take that next step. They can help the next one in line. And work on yourself, because everybody goes through something. There's nothing wrong with anything surrounding traumas from childhood. There's nothing wrong with fighting for what you want. There's nothing wrong with discovering yourself and becoming a badass in whatever field you choose to do. So thank you.
Please engage with us in social media. Give us your feedback. Tell us different topics that you want to hear in future episodes. Tell us what you thought about today's episode. Again, you can find our podcast, our Instagram information on Breaking Barriers, the podcast. Again, on Instagram, it's Breaking Barriers, the podcast. And please give us your feedback. So until next time, please follow us on our journey, Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. Thank you, guys.